there's the buffet, there's the stall warner, and then I go full back and right rudder, right wing drops, and now the airplane is in a spin. A spin is when you've lost stalled one wing early and it just gets stuck in this loop of spinning, and you see here it's not recovering. Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot, and today an exciting video for you, something I've been so keen to share with you. This is the JustFlight PA38 Tomahawk in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The reason I'm so excited about this airplane is this is the first aircraft I learned to fly. It is how I started my flight training, and it's what got me where I am today flying airliners in the real world. I absolutely love this airplane, and it has a very important place in my heart and in my love for aviation. I've been very excited for JustFlight to bring this out, and it's been a long time coming actually. This project was announced a while ago, but they've done a lot of work and a lot of reworking on it to really get it up to where it is today, and I'm excited to say that this is one of the best general aviation airplanes I've seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator, if not the best. It is absolutely fantastic to use and to live with, and we'll see why as we go through this video today. We are of course going to take it for a flight, look at some of the features and try out the handling, which I can say are all absolutely brilliant, and you're going to want to see what comes up in the video with how this airplane flies and how these systems are simulated, which is great for such a simple airplane, but yeah, not something that I've seen before in many of the areas. I really enjoy it. This is a trainer, of course. The PA38 was designed by Piper specifically from advice from talking to flight instructors to try and make it a useful aircraft for training new pilots. The aircraft has some certain characteristics that make it particularly tricky, and earning it the nickname amongst some pilots of the Tomahawk, and that's because it was designed specifically so it would spin and not recover on its own, unlike equivalent aircraft like the Cessna 150, 152, which would recover from spins naturally. The Tomahawk needed pilot intervention using the aerofoil that they have on the wing. The pilots had to intervene to make it recover from a spin. It's a daring characteristic of an airplane, and it's certainly one that actually caused some serious incidents and earned it that nickname. Even so, I loved flying it, and there's a lot of nice features about it that I enjoy. It's only got a 4-cylinder engine, twin blade propeller, that's it. It's a fixed pitch propeller, so very simple. No retractable landing gear, no hydraulics, nothing like that. It is a simple airplane all round, but a total joy to be in. It was actually made in the late 70s and early 80s, over 2,400 built, which is actually far more than I thought, and you don't see so many these days. It's sadly sort of a relatively rare aeroplane, but yeah, absolutely great fun to fly. And I love the bubble sort of canopy. You get a great view out from that canopy, the only downside being the fixed wing is obviously underneath you, so it does block your view down a little bit compared to the 150, 152. It's very light at 757 kilos max takeoff weight, and it can climb up to 13,000 feet, although I would struggle to see the fun of flying this airplane that high. I think it would very much lose out on its performance, but there we go. Let's start off the video by, of course, going around the exterior. This add-on features some really interesting new additions to the flight simulation of general aviation aircraft, including a good This add-on features some really interesting new features for a general aviation aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator, including some high-level stuff such as wear system on things like the tyres and even the flight controls. It's also got failures modelled in it, and we have a walk-around feature, which I'm really excited to show you, to sort of give you that real sense that you're flying a real airplane, and it's persistent, so the wear of the aircraft does save over as you flight to flight, which I think is really very cool. This is a preview build, so do please keep that in mind. Release is coming soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, if not a bit sooner, and pricing is not yet set, so do please keep all of that in mind throughout today's video. I am a real-world airline pilot, but I am not a real-world Tomahawk pilot at the moment. I don't do much general aviation flying, so of course everything in today's video is not for any real-world use. It's just to give you some extra context on your home simulations and give you an idea of what this product is all about and what this aeroplane is all about, and hopefully share a bit of the love of the Tomahawk with you all, and hopefully you'll get to enjoy it in the sim soon yourselves. Now, I'm sure you've already gathered from my intro there, but this is a superb visual model. There's just so much great stuff to talk about. So let's get right up close to the front of the airplane as a start, and you can see here the little chips behind the propeller. This is what happens to aircraft and general aviation. Oil and bits of muck and stone chips and so on build up over time, of course, behind the propeller, which picks it up off the ground. And as we look along the propeller leading edge, this top end here, you can see even the wear on the edge side, which is just great, absolutely gorgeous, because the tips are going much faster, and any sort of stones or gravel or anything like that lying around on taxiways will take a nick out of it. It's something that we check on the walk-around, and the walk-around is something we will talk about in just a moment as we move on to actually getting the airplane ready with the procedures. You can see here the cowling, and this is where the visual model is great. It is not just textures, it is physical 3D parts. Look at that, the cowling sitting just a bit loose. This is not a very, shall I say, premium aeroplane by any means. It is designed for flight training and therefore is rugged, lightweight, and meant to be durable, but not fancy in any way. It is not streamlined particularly, so you can see here latches that pop out a bit, panel lines just sort of sticking out. It's just great how well they've modeled this. And if you look in the details here, you even got little bits of oil and muck around the panels where they join up. Just great. Nice decals, always like to have decals. I think they really bring model aircraft to life in Flight Simulator. And here we have the fuel drain, for example, at the front. Again, more to come on that as we go into the walk around. The story really carries on all over. If you look at the window, look at the texturing on this. And I say that the different materials are so visible in the light. The texturing of this canopy, and then you've got behind it the different textures of this dashboard glare shield area housing the instruments. Absolutely beautiful. And then they've even got the matte sort of paint on the top for this black engine cover, which I haven't seen before. I do like this livery. I haven't flown this airplane, but yeah, I like it a lot. As we move down the side of the airplane, the theme continues. Not much missing at all. The sort of general grimy streaks you get running down from the rivets, which is something you see on airliners as well. The windows of them usually have that effect, which always surprises me, but there we go. As we move down the back, here's the static port on the tail of the airplane, or on the side of the tail. Really just gorgeous, really captures the airplane, and in any sort of lighting you're going to get such a nice detail as all these rivets and different marks come to life and the different textures. So hopefully I'm capturing that for you in this video here today. Look at that, every rivet is there. Just brilliant. As we move to the underside, something we'd expect is to have a bit of grime, and you can see these are the footsteps with that sort of matte grip tape on them, and then oil and grime and so on underneath the airplane. Very common on a hard-working training aircraft like this. Yeah, love it. Same as well if you look above the wheels where mud and bits are thrown up as you taxi around, and around the hinges of the flaps. Really cool. And you can see, of course, we have little details like the tie downs, the chocks are in, and even as we move over here, one of the strangest pitot designs I've ever seen, but they are around. It's just relatively uncommon, this sort of vertical wing type pitot, and we'll see that again as we go into the walk around. Currently covered up with a remove before flight flag on it, and this is the stall warner system. Unlike the Cessnas, it's not a suction one, it's an actual little metal tab. So as you're making your reduction in airspeed, the wing air is obviously flowing over the top and bottom, and there's a central pressure point. What happens is as you increase the angle of attack, that point moves lower and lower and lower, and then as you get close to the stall, it will move beneath the stall warner, which will lift that stall warner up and give us the stall horn in the flight deck, which will give us the cue that we are getting close to the stall, and of course you'd hear the buffet and so on. But anyway, lots more to talk about, but yeah, and here's some mud where you'd walk in on the grip tape. One of my favourite features of the Tomahawk is you can get in either side. Now that is a premium feature. There are doors on both sides of the airplane, which just makes it so comfortable to get in and out of. Like I say, preview version, so do please keep that in mind for today's video. Okay, let's get going with the procedures. So here we are on the flight deck, and this is a full general aviation experience. So as you can see, you've got the flight deck door open, fantastic view of the wing with the sun on it. The grime on the wing, and then the texturing of this grip tape are just absolutely gorgeous. Really takes me back to this airplane. It's a very simple flight deck. You'll see fantastic red seats as well. Nothing behind you, just a little stowage area, and you've got beautiful views. It's such a great airplane for flying. You've got so much light and so many big windows. I love it. Absolutely love it. Right, let's have a look then at the JustFlight EFB just before we get started. You can of course choose your aircraft state. So I'll select cold and dark. It does close up the doors and everything, but yeah, we'll show you fact, I'll show you how the door works, just to show you the detail they've gone to. The Tomahawk door has 2 latches on it, which is actually means you easily forget one. So to open it, you can open that and push the door open, but as you see, I can click here, it's not working. I need to unlatch the roof because there's a secondary latch up there, and then you can throw the door open, which is really good detailing. Very happy with that indeed. Some other features in here, you can change the GPS around. So this is a well-equipped version. You can remove that. You have the ADF you can remove as well, and you can have a second HSI. So for your navigating, you can either navigate using VOR needles, ADF needles, or you can have the GPS if you want. And of course, you can turn those off in here, although there is a slight bug in my version at the moment. Like I say, preview version, not expecting that in the release version. It just means I can't quite change that around. Over here we have the maintenance tab, which is showing me no warnings. I've got failures and wear and tear turned on. You can see the condition is 99% with 0.1 hours. Now I have flown it a bit more than that. This is just because I was using this. I reset it to see what changed about the airplane. So wear and tear and failures are both on. I'm going to put the rates to fast just to make it a bit of fun. And you'll see things like tyres wear down, the pressure in the tyres will wear, and so on. But you might be wondering, well, how do I see the tyre wear and the pressure? Well, don't worry, we're going to see that now. So let's start up the checklist, and that'll take us through our inspection of the airplane, something all pilots will do before you do anything. And you start off with a pre-flight check. So in the cockpit, we're going to release any constraint, which we don't have fitted here. So tick that. Ignition, make sure it's off, very important. Ignition key is in the off position. Master switch on, so we turn both master switches on. Fuel quantity gauges check. We have fuel in both tanks, pretty full. Alternator warning light check, that's up here and that's lit. Master switches can go off. Primary flight controls, proper operation. So for this, you just need to make sure that everything moves as you would want it to. And you can look outside. Ooh, let's just reset that camera. And see that all happening. This is a very mechanical airplane, and the rudder will work as well. You'll notice the nose wheel does not turn. This is true of the real aircraft. It's heavy and it would not move when moving the rudder pedals while sat on stand like this. So even if the rudder's moving, it sits still, modelled correctly by JustFlight there. Flaps proper operation, and it's going to be down both sides. The flaps in the Tomahawk are great fun. Instead of any electrical fancy switches, it's just this handbrake, and you just go clunk, clunk. So you can literally choose how quickly you want to deploy them, and then it locks in, and there's only the 2 positions. So proper operation and down, which I think it should tell you. Yeah, and static drained, windows check clean, baggage stowed, papers are on board. Parking brake set on. Parking brake is this hand brake here, so just get rid of the yoke to show you, and you can oh, not that one, release it and put it on. Really fiddly in the real airplane. Absolutely not my favorite piece of design, but quite a good brake. It does work. It's just, yeah, a little bit fiddly. Next, you can see it goes on to left wing, and this is talking about the walkaround. So let's close that, and let's do the walkaround, which is a pre-flight exterior inspection, be the more correct. So to begin the walkaround, what I'm going to do is go over to the EFB and select Start Walkaround. Then it takes you through the order with the arrows, taking you around the aircraft, just like you would do on your pre-flight exterior inspection of the real aircraft. Isn't this fantastic? First of all, click on the camera, and this will take you outside, and then you get to see your first items that need checking: aileron, flap, and fuel quantity. Now the flaps should have been in a down position from the setup inside, so there we go, just put them there. And what we're going to do is simply click on the item. So aileron check, click on the aileron, and there's a little wobble, which is exactly what I do on the real airplane, just checking it's all sort of secure. And same for the flap, just check it holds its position against the pressure of the wind, just like the real airplane should. Check the hinges, check the static connectors, things like that. Fuel quantity as well, click on the fuel filler cap, and it will show you the quantity, and you can select, I'll do refill to 75%. Very neat. I love the way you can click on the actual parts and they react. I really enjoy that. Then I'm going to click next, and this will move us to the front edge of the left wing. Here we have a few more things to check. First of all, chocks remove, so you can click on the chocks, and then that's done the tie down one. Let's do the chocks. There we go. Toggle the left chock, and same for the tie down. Let's remove those. So click on those, toggle tie down. Left tire check, you can click on it. It shows you the pressure inside, which will go down over time, and the condition, and you have the brake as well. Again, I've done another reset on the airplane while fiddling around, so it shows 100% for now, and you can replace it if it needs to. Stall warner check, It won't make any noise without the master switch on, but there you go. You can see a little metal flap move. Again, fantastic detail. Fuel strain check. So this is a strainer where you'd actually hold a clear tube against it. It then pours the fuel into the tube and the water settles to the bottom. It's heavier than fuel, so you can see how much fuel is left over in the aeroplane. Sorry, how much water is in the fuel, and by straining it, you're basically taking the water out because it should settle at the bottom of the tank. It doesn't work just after fueling, but it works after the airplane's been left overnight very well. Pitot cover off, so click on that and then toggle the pitot cover. The heater's okay. Again, these things can be damaged by interactions with the ground, with gravel, with bad landings, things like that. And that's also true of the gear strut. So we'll check that and you can see the condition 100%. That will go down if we have a very bad landing, which is, I'm sure, something we can arrange. Moving on then, we click next to the front of the airplane. We've got the chocks removed, nose tyre check. So click on that. No concerns, pressure, all looking good. No brake pad, of course, on the nose gear. Propeller check, so you click on that and it spins round. You don't need to do this on the real aircraft. You don't have to spin it all the way around, but you can just check it's secured. And what's quite cool, a really neat feature, you'd also check the leading edge for big nicks or anything like that that could upset the balance of the propeller. But I actually had this airplane hot after I'd done a flight with it, and then I left some of the parts in the flight deck on. If you leave like the magnetos on or the fuel and then you spin it like that, you're effectively kickstarting the engine. It's like running the starter motor, especially if the magnetos are on. Very dangerous, and of course a real risk in the real aircraft. So if you do work in general aviation, you tend to learn to just treat propellers like they are always live. I would never spin one round unless there was a really good reason to. But yeah, anyway, it did fire up on me. So by doing this and during this walk around, it fired up in the sim, which I think is just great. Just shows the system modeling underneath. I really like it. Tow bar is removed and the fuel strain here is a little click there. No water quantity in that. That's great. And the nose gear strut tick. Good. Next one now, we're going to click on the engine and we can see the engine oil, the quantity, and if we go through, the battery voltage and the spark plug condition, all of which do wear out over time. We have the right tyre to check, so we click on that, and the tie downs on this side, click and toggle. Fuel strain, that's here on this side, and the gear strut check as well. All looking good. Next, moving to the end, the rear of the right wing, we'll do the aileron and the flap check, and then again the fuel quantity. I'm going to take 75% on this side as well, please. Next, take the elevator, the rudder and the antennas on the rear of the aircraft, and you can see which antennas could be damaged or not. Fantastic. Checks complete, and that takes us back to the start. So you can see now all ticked off. We've done our full walk around. So now I can just press the F key and I'll be back in the flight deck. How great is that? What a bit of fun that we can have all of those different features. So, by the way, on the EFB, it's the usual JustFlight, so you can have your operational flight plan. This is my old one from SimBrief left over from our last stream, and we can also have the map if we want it as well, which I think is very cool and handy. But mainly we're going to use the aircraft, and if we hit return, it puts us back in the seat and also brings us to the main page here. Great stuff. Right, now let's carry on with the checklist. So we've done the pre-flight check here, so we'll go to the before starting engine checklist, which is what we have now. I'm just going to reset this. So cabin door closed and latch. So remember, we close, we latch, and then we have to, I just tick that, overhead latch engage, and that seals it up properly. I have taken off with this one not done before, back in the very early days of my flying, and it's very noisy. But the door doesn't quite sit closed in the airflow. It's ever so slightly open. It's not particularly unsafe, but it's certainly not correct either. So yeah, make sure that one is latched. It's very hard to secure it in flight otherwise, because the airflow will be sort of driving it open a little bit. Seatbelts harness is secured. Circuit breakers in. These are the circuit breakers. You can actually pop them, but they are in. Parking brake set. Here's our little park brake handle. Works quite nicely. And the fuel carburetor heat is full off. Fuel selected desired tank. So let's start with the left tank. A little catch there that engages to lock it in the on position, so you can't accidentally spin it round to off. Quite clever design. So you see that if you try and go off, it just bounces on that. You have to click that and then drive it off. Again, great modeling. Love it. Next is the engine start. It's going to be an engine start when cold. I'm just going to reset this. So yeah, prime the engine as required. So and in fact, something else I want to show you. You'll see there is a checklist for when flooded. Start the engine when flooded. And if you go to the maintenance tab, you can see here I have a warning, engine flooded. That's because I've been fiddling around with the sim, setting up this video and doing all sorts. So what we could do is do the engine flooded checklist. Why don't we try that? So what we're going to do is throttle, fully open, master switch on, So flooded means there's too much fuel sitting in the engine, and it therefore won't start properly. So master switch is on, electric fuel pump stays off in this case. Mixture idle cutoff, so we're keeping it in the lean position, so we're not providing any fuel. The fuel pump's off, the mixture is off, starter engaged. So we're now going to just drive the engine round. And what we're doing is just driving that fuel out of the engine. And now we can go mixture advance. Throttle retards. And now the engine has started. So again, what we're looking now is for 800 RPM, so I can actually bring the throttle back a little bit. So it's a good start. Oil pressure, we want to check that that has engaged, and that is. And you can see here, oil pressure should rise to the green within 30 seconds normally, but you can this little sticker saying that it's actually under reading by 30 psi. So a very cool detail. So actually we are in the green range, it's just the gauge under reads. And we have to check there is oil pressure, because if the oil isn't going into the engine and there's no pressure in the engine, then there's a risk of huge damage to the engine. So yeah, make sure that's done. And fuel pressure check. We have the fuel pressure up here, all looking good. And that is done. Next will be the warm-up. Throttle 800 to 1200 RPM. So we'll keep it no lower than 800 while we're on the ground. You don't want to foul the spark plugs by having the engine sitting at very low RPMs for a long time on the ground, so you don't leave it at true idle. And there we go. How cool is that? A flooded engine startup that works. So you can see there we had the throttle open to drive out any of that excess fuel. Just going to get rid of that message for the GPS and move it to map page, see if it wakes up, and we're going to set the QNH. I'm going to turn on some lights so you can all see what's going on a bit better. There we go. Excellent. We can also turn on our radios, our transponder. Leave the ADF off, won't be using that. This is our backup radio, I should say. Good. Right, next is the taxiing checklist. So let's get ourselves out to the runway. Now the Tomahawk is very light and therefore affected massively by winds. So you can see here, we've got quite light winds actually today, light windsock, but it's gently pulling to the left into that wind. So it's representative of the real aircraft, and JustFlight does warn about this in the manual. It is a very light aeroplane and it will be affected by the wind, and it's great to see that modelled. As I say, it's very nice to taxi. I really enjoy it. It's a satisfying airplane with a nice heavy nose steering. Makes it feel like a much bigger airplane than it really is. Anyway, it's clear out on approach. I'm going to line up on the runway to do our power checks before we get departed out of here, which I think should be pretty good. You'd normally do these probably off the runway unless it's a very quiet airport. But there we go. Bit faster, a bit sporty. Onto the grass, into wind, and we'll just imagine this is where air traffic have asked us to do it, or the Flight Information Service has asked us to do it. So, gently to a stop. Not that gently. Set the parking brake, and now we can run our power checks. So going into the checklist here, we have the this would be the, we've done the taxi check, so radios, taxi, brakes and steering. Ground check, let me reset this. So parking brake is set, throttle 1800 RPM, so increase this now 800 RPM, which is quite a lot of power for the little Tomahawk, but there we go, 800 there. Tick. Magnetos check. So the magnetos are used to spark the combustion of the internal combustion engine. So if you turn one side off, you expect it to lose some power. So we're making sure that that is working and all connected correctly. Vacuum is at 5 plus or minus 0.1. Oil temperature over here is looking good in the green, and the pressure as well in the green. Carburetor heat check. So this is where we introduce hot air into the carburetor. This reduces the efficiency, which gives us a reduction in power, but it's very important because ice can build up in the carburetor due to the way it lowers the air pressure, so any humidity in it can freeze even at temperatures above zero. So very important that we do this because that melts the ice away, because if you don't, there's a potential for that ice to actually starve the engine of fuel. So that does work, looking good. Throttle, we're now going to retard. Back to idle. Check that the engine does idle. By the way, I love the throttle on the Tomahawk. It's really big. It's quite plasticky, but it's big, satisfying, moves in a conventional sense, not like a push-pull one like in a Cessna. I quite like it. And magnetos check now that they don't actually shut off the engine by being turned. So there we go. Oh, not start, both. There you go. You do not want to run the starter at this stage. Easier to feel in the real aircraft where that switch is. Next is the before takeoff checklist. So Oh, have we finished that? Magneto's check. Good. Yeah, so now let's put the throttle back to our 800 RPM or above. Right, master switch is both on. Flight instruments are checked. We'll set the QNH. Fuel selector, let's change it over to the right tank. Check that we have that working. And the mixture is set to rich for takeoff. Electric fuel pump can go on. The carburetor heat off. Engine gauges are all checked. Green, 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 looking very happy. Static source normal, that's down here. You'd have to have changed it so it isn't normal. Seats are securely latched in the track. Seat backs are erect, and there's nothing funny about that. Belts harnesses are fastened. Empty seat is actually, we have the occupants in today, the co-pilot, and we'll talk about why in a moment. But this is a very common, the Tomahawk would often have the instructor sat there. Flaps are set. We're going to go to one stage of flaps for our takeoff today because we have a shorter runway and obstacles in front of us. Trim tab is set, so you want that down here, and I want that set to run so that the tab is next to the N for neutral. Controls are free, so we will run our yoke all the way around. So and rudder. And what's quite nice in the Tomahawk, something I always liked, was you could actually see all the controls. So I can see my rudder moving, I can see my elevator moving, and I can see my ailerons moving, which is, yeah, pretty reassuring. Not many airplanes have that option. Doors are closed and latched, and the overhead is latched as well. Let's just make sure of that. Yep. I still remember that day. Next, the checklist does include some instructions. So we're doing a short field obstacle clearance. So what this means is we're on a shorter runway and there's an obstacle in front of us. Otherwise, you could have a short field where you just have a short runway but no obstacle, or you can have a soft field with obstacle clearance, or you can have short field. So maybe actually we should do soft field today. So we'll have the flaps set to the first notch, which is what we've done. Then we accelerate and lift nose gear as soon as possible, and you lift off at the lowest airspeed as possible. Quite an exciting one. Then we get to 61 knots with flaps out to clear the obstacle, and then we get to 70 once we're above it, and then we can retract the flaps. So the normal takeoff would just be accelerate to 53 and rotate. So we're going to just rotate as soon as we can and get the airplane up in the air, and then climb at 61 until we're past the obstacle. Pretty straightforward, he says. So let's get going. Okay, so parking brake released. Carburetor heat is off, so we're going to go full power. Pretty straightforward. And then we're going to need some rudder to keep it straight. And remember, it's lift off as soon as possible, probably somewhere just over 50 knots. And then climb at 61 knots. You see how it gradually accelerates. This is not a powerful airplane. Don't make any mistake. Right, getting that rotation. Up we go. Now 61 knots to clear the obstacle. There it is. Those lovely big marks of Flight Simulator trees. Keep climbing, and what I'm going to do is just check it is all clear, and then we can start our turn. Keep climbing. It will not climb as fast as an airliner. You get used to this in general aviation. We've cleared those obstacles now, so I'm going to accelerate to 70. Still retrimming, retrimming, retrimming. There's 70. Speed's good. Flaps up. And we'll keep climbing away at 70 now. Bit of a trim change there as the flaps come in. Good stuff. And we're going to head out to sea initially. And away we go. How cool is that? Beautiful sounds on this aeroplane. Really impressed with them. Love that propeller as well. The circuit in this airfield is quite strange. I have flown here in real life many years ago, and yeah, you do end up doing some interesting approaches. I'm not sure. I think the circuit may well be on the right hand here, but either way, you do end up flying over these towns a little bit closer than you do at some other airfields. Now, the Tomahawk is the perfect place to enjoy the scenery of Microsoft Flight Simulator. It just captures it perfectly. You can see how slowly we fly. It all just feels very natural. Enjoy the coastline here, climbing away. Love it. So we can climb up to 2,000. In fact, let's keep climbing to 3,000 feet initially, and we'll talk about some of the handling of this airplane. There is another checklist we can run. If I go in here, checklists, and we have the takeoff we've done. So climb checklist, flaps are up, and electric fuel pump off. Next is cruise, 75%, adjust the mixture. Nothing too exciting in there. Now, if you are bored of hand flying the airplane, you can actually go over to your EFB and just engage in autopilot. So, master on, altitude 1600 feet, heading 236. And now the airplane will just maintain that for you, which I think is really nice. Not sure, heading 236, if I adjust that. No, sorry, that's not a heading bug, it's the HSI. So yeah, there we go. So you can just put it in heading mode and it will maintain that heading for you. And you can see it's actually descending down 1600. So we can bring the power back now before we accelerate too fast. About 100 knots cruise speed in this airplane. It's not a fast airplane, not designed to be. Flying along the coastline, lovely. Absolutely beautiful. You could, of course, also now tune in your GPS if you wanted to, set it direct. We can put in a VOR into our nav frequency, nav1, and then track it on our OBS up here. So yeah, all the standard sort of PPL training sort of things that you might want to do. Remember as well, we can look in our maintenance tab, see if we have any warnings, and you know, the condition of the airplane will slowly wear and tear as it goes. Now let's talk about the handling of this airplane. This is, after all, a general aviation add-on, so we need it to feel like the airplane is alive and handling as we would expect it to. Otherwise the magic just isn't there. And I'm pleased to say it really does work. There's a lot of things in here contributing to that. Just to give you an example, if you don't have the second pilot in, so if I get rid of the co-pilot, down here, disabled, then you'll see that immediately the airplane starts to bank to the left. This is because the weight isn't distributed evenly and the airplane is very susceptible to weight. You only have 2 passengers and 2 passengers make up a lot of the weight in the airplane, so it starts to roll to the left. We don't have an aileron trim. All you can see outside are these trim tabs, so this is just with the ailerons at neutral, it would naturally start to turn. Now, this is a great feature that just shows how the airplane is responding to things like weight, and if I add them back in again, you'll see the airplane suddenly settles down and flies a bit more straight and level. At the lower levels, at low airspeed and high power, you'll find that the airplane does tend to bank anyway. That's because of the torque of the propeller, the engine, and the way the air spirals over the tail of the aircraft. Again, that's why you have a rudder trim tab on the real airplane used to balance that out. I think this is a really cool feature, and it does show how the dynamics of the airplane are working and it is responding like the real thing. However, what I would like to see is this to become an option you can toggle. It's just because in the real airplane, like I say, you have the trim tabs, and they are usually, although you can't adjust them in flight, they are adjusted to balance out the airplane a bit. So the ailerons on the real Tomahawk would actually tend to sit slightly out of the neutral position because the trim tabs would be used to counteract the effects we've just discussed, and that's the same for the rudder. So the yaw is, or the constant roll isn't quite as noticeable. For now though, if you add in the second pilot, that does help, although obviously lowers your performance margin a little bit with the extra weight. And I say a little bit, I mean quite a lot. Some other great things though, if we run that carburetor heat, you'll see we do get our drop in RPM as expected. And as you climb, you might have to lean the mixture. All of these things simulated nicely. Now we're up at 4,700 feet, so we're nice and high. So what it is worth doing is seeing some of the handling of this airplane, and the best way to show that in this video is going to be with a stall and a spin. The Tomahawk is famous for its stalling characteristics. As I said earlier in the video, this is actually why it was designed the way it was. It was supposed to be so that the airplane would stall would not recover from a spin on its own and needed pilot's input. This is a way to train pilots to handle the aircraft correctly, whereas Cessna 150s and 152s would actually recover on their own, therefore sort of losing some of the teaching points of it. So let's head over into this nice clear area in front of us, and then we can have a go at that. Another great feature about this airplane is the T-tail. Because that T is so high, it actually means that the elevator is not in the propeller wash, so you can see here as I move the elevator it's actually in the airflow. It gives it a very heavy pitch feeling, which makes it replicate larger aircraft. This airplane in general feels like a much larger airplane than it is, whereas a Cessna 150 might feel a little bit lighter. It does feel like a small machine, and it's helped by things like this big yoke and the big throttle. I think it basically feels like you're flying a much larger airplane. Good fun when you're starting out, definitely. So let's have a look at the stall. So I'm going to reduce the power now. We've got enough height to recover. Just trim the nose back a bit, and then we're going to keep the airplane level using the yoke. Watch that speed wash off. It should get down into the high 50s before we stall. You'll hear the stall warner and the buffet. There's both of those. Keep pulling, and it even drops the wing, and down we go. So let's recover. So I'm going to apply power, get the nose up towards the nearest horizon, and make sure we don't go into a secondary stall. You see there, the airplane actually recovered. Actually dropped a wing in the stall, which is quite a natural phenomenon of aircraft, especially these nice big straight wings. But it didn't spin, and that's because we didn't apply any rudder. And I'm really pleased to see that. The aircraft you don't have to go into a spin. It's not just robotically going into a spin. It is recovering as we'd like to. So if I do that again, but this time apply full rudder as we enter the stall, you'll see something slightly different happens. Let's trim. Now we'll just hold it on the elevator. There's the buffet, there's the stall warner, and then I go full back and right rudder. Right wing drops, and now the airplane is in a spin. A spin is when you've stalled one wing early, and it just gets stuck in this loop of spinning. And you see here, it's not recovering. So to recover, I need to apply forward yoke, opposite rudder. And now we're going to hold that, and then the airplane will snap out of it, and we'll regain airflow over the wings. And now we're going to gently roll. We're going to overspeed a bit here. Roll it to the horizon. There we go. Now we're going to make sure we get the power on and recover safe level flights. Spinning is great fun, terrifying at the same time, but it is a feature of these aircraft that we need to be ready for. So yeah, they've modelled that fantastically, and it's very, very repeatable. Let's have another look. Okay, let's try again then with another stall. So I'm going to power back, another spin, sorry. Running the trim back, holding the nose up, waiting for that buffet. Let's try a spin to the left now. Stall, buffet, left rudder, up on the elevator, round we go, and now I'm going to let go of all the controls at neutral, and look at this, it's just spinning away. Forward on the yoke, full right rudder, hold it there, aeroplane bites the air, and now rolling up to that horizon. Don't overstress the airplane, and there we go. Power now, recovering to level flight. Just fantastic. Like I say, completely repeatable, and yeah, just like how I remember spinning. I didn't spin a Tomahawk, I spun actually a different airplane, but yeah, it's still just fantastic. They've really nailed the experience. And like I say, what I'm particularly pleased with is if we go into a normal stall without applying the rudder, it doesn't just spin on you, which is true of the real airplane. As long as you don't apply the rudder, it does do a nasty wing drop, but then you can go forward on the yoke, and then we can gently recover, even from a full stall like that with a wing drop. Really great flight modelling there. So let's head back to our airfield and go in for a landing. Head out over to the coast. Now here's something fun I've discovered. If you do slew mode, like I just did, to cheat a little bit, it will actually overspeed all the controls, and then you'll find that they are damaged and inoperative in flight. But what you can do is actually just move over to the EFB and simply remove the options for failures. So you can actually just have wear and tear. But if you do re-engage them, it will just pop them back where it was. So if I turn them on again, you'll see now I've lost control. I can't actually steer the airplane at all, whereas if you remove them, it goes back. So that's quite a handy feature. I like that a lot. So let's now get the airplane ready in the circuit, and we're going to rejoin the pattern over there. There's our airfield, just down there. Good. We'll land it on that grass runway, so I'm going to do a circuit out to sea and then round and in. Send down to 1,000 feet above the airfield. Again, I don't remember the exact local procedures for this one, but let's run the checklist now. So we're in the approach phase, so we're going to have the proper tank for fuel. We're on the right, which still has a bit more fuel in it, so we'll stick with the right tank. Seats are secured, belt harness is fastened. Mixture is going to be rich as we get lower. Flaps, so at 89 we can set our flaps, and we'll go for a full flap landing, which will be 67 knots. So that's all we need to do. In the cruise checks, not much else to do, so yeah, there we go. Some other things I'm going to do as we get close to the pattern, I will run the carb heat just to make sure we have run that. I'm going to put the fuel pump on. I'm going to have the landing light, anti-collision lights, and the pitot heat is on today because we keep going in and out of these clouds, so we'll leave it on for now. Excellent, so we head down to 1,000 feet. Awesome. Absolutely loving this airplane, as you might be able to tell. It's just everything I'd hoped it would be. I was really excited for this, and it's just recapturing the fun of the Tomahawk. So let's aim for a sort of short field landing on this runway here. I think that should be pretty good fun. So we're almost down at 1,100 feet. Bit of a high downwind join here. Not really an official joining. Should be good fun though. We're down below 89 knots, so we can do the flaps, but we're not going to just yet. I've got the carburetor heat on because we're at low power and descending, so it's a good idea. This is just where Microsoft Flight Simulator really shines. We've got this beautiful view. We've got the bubble canopy. You can see all around us. Right, no lower than that. Get the power on. I'm just going to trim it out for about 70 knots. Level flight. There's the runway. 1,000 feet. Passing the threshold. So, brakes are off, definitely. Undercarriage is down. Mixture is rich. Propeller is at maximum. There is not a propeller control on this aircraft. Now this is where that wing becomes an issue. You can see here it's actually blocking a lot of my view. You can look behind it and in front of it, but yeah, it can be a bit of a nuisance in that position. So what we're going to do now is bring the power back, keep us level, keep that carb heat on, and we'll get the first stage of flap out. So trunk, big trim change, very impactful, quite a big control. And yeah, nothing fancy to help us out in terms of flight control computers or anything like that. So yeah, it does need some work. Getting the power off now. Don't want to be too high. There's the runway over there. Around we come. Oh, this is just great. This is just what I always wanted Microsoft Flight Simulator to be, or my home sim to be. When I was learning on the Tomahawk, if I could have had something like this, I'd have been so happy. Right, flaps we've done, fuel is on, we've set our QNH, carb heat is on, and hatches and harnesses are secure. We'll go full flap now, get the speed back. Now I need to remember what that approach speed was. 67. So yeah, just under 70 knots. That rings a bell. So about there. So get the power on now. And as we're on final, make sure you are in trim, and then you adjust the power for your height in general aviation. A little bit fast, so keep trimming out. And just in case we go around, let's get that carb heat off. Not as handy as the push-pull slider design on the Cessnas, I must say. Still a bit fast, getting the power off, trimming it out. Wind from the right here. Oh, it's such a lovely flying airplane, the Tomahawk, and this just captures it so nicely. Over the threshold, throttle to idle. There's touchdown. Get the nose down. It does try and weathercock with the wind. Does quite a float there, but yeah, I'll use the excuse I'm using an Xbox controller for this video. I should have made that excuse before 1,000 feet, but there we go. That would have been about halfway through the video. And we can now taxi clear. Now, I don't know what the taxiing rules are here either, but yeah. Then you can run in and obviously run your shutdown. Let's set the parking brake here on the runway and just block it for a little while. I've got to say, that landing felt just like I remember the aircraft doing it. Absolutely fantastic. And it's a very nice airplane to land on grass, or any runway actually. It's quite good shock absorbers on those main gear struts. So that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As you can probably tell, I am very enthusiastic about the PA38 Tomahawk, and JustFlight have done a fantastic job, as you would expect, bringing it into Microsoft Flight Simulator. The exterior model, the handling of the aircraft, and the systems and the wear and tear are all just great features that make this into a really, really enjoyable and one of the best general aviation experiences I've had in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I cannot express enough how well I think this airplane flies and handles. I think it's just great. They've really done a good job, let alone with the visuals and the handling. That's all then. There'll be plenty more videos, guides, live streams coming on the channel. Do please subscribe if you'd like to see those. Otherwise, please do keep safe and well. We'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.